Hello, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Deborah Young and I'm the CEO of the RegTech Association. I'd like to start today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and offer a very warm welcome to all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends here today. And a big warm welcome to everyone on the line. Welcome. You've actually joined an elite group today, numbering 2,400 people from 35 countries who've joined us since the 17th of March to participate, educate and showcase the potential of RegTech. So thank you all for coming today and for your contributions. We've welcomed a new member in the last couple of weeks in the National Australia Bank, and to the guys from the NAB, welcome. So that leaves us with an aspiration of one more before we can claim all of the big four Australian banks. A warm welcome as well to all of the other new members that we have, and there are many on the line today, and to our existing and long-term members. I want to thank you very much for your support. We're obviously going through our membership renewal process at the moment, so your support is very much appreciated by us. You know, to recap this week, it's been a big global week for us. We've connected with the Financial Conduct Authority in London. I played a role in a global working group today with the Institute of International Finance. This week did a global presentation and a mini showcase to the Central Bank of Oman, and we beamed RegTechs in from all around the world to present at that. We're working on a number of new global forums with the IIF, and we're talking to our counterparts around the world at running some joint events. And if we were in any doubt at all, RegTech is on the rise, and it is most definitely on the radar. I wanted to actually also call out our friends in Victoria at the moment, in particular in Australia, who are now back in lockdown for 6 weeks. I'm not there with you physically, but I'm there with you in spirit and in solidarity. So please do reach out and have a chat. And in fact, I talked to someone today about us potentially doing a little bit of a mental health check-in with our team members, wherever they are around the world, actually. If they want to drop in for a chat, I'll arrange something. Next slide, please, Al. On this slide, I like to show this at all of these events just to be super crystal clear about the association and what we're all about, and in particular, this first one in navigating COVID-19 pandemic has presented some challenges for everyone, and we just want you to know that we are here to support you and we are doing what we can. And in fact, the pandemic has caused us to actually format these events as we are doing them now. And if there's one positive that I can say, that the global borders have broken down, and this has allowed us to actually invite many more people to come and see some fantastic solutions. So that's really great. We're obviously continuing to advocate on your behalf. We are also continuing to explore and expand export markets for RegTech, and to find new markets for RegTech, and also to encourage investors to come and see what we have in store. So thank you, Al. Is that my last slide? I think it.
Yes,
I think
yes,
it is. Yeah, that's fine. So, look, the need for trust has been elevated during this pandemic, and trust goes to the heart of all RegTech, and none more so than financial crime. And we've got a fantastic lineup of RegTechs today, and including, we're lucky enough to be sponsored by our friends at EY, who are going to provide us with an overview. And I'm going to hand over to Kimberley Whale shortly, who's going to be our MC, and she's going to moderate. She's going to moderate the RegTechs and moderate the Q&A. I wanted to acknowledge each of them individually. So we have first AML, Synopsis Solutions, Comply Advantage, Feature Space, and Silent 8. A wonderful global array of RegTechs. Today's attendees on the line are actually from 13 different countries, and I wanted to shout out in particular to those dialing in from the US. You really are up in the middle of the night, so thank you for coming. But I also wanted to give you a flavour of who is actually on the line. so that we know who's actually interested in RegTech. So we have regulators, we have payment platform providers, we have banks, we have casinos, we have technology companies, we have RegTechs, of course, we have investors, we have law firms, educators, super funds, universities, consulting firms, trade and development agencies, central banks, government, media, other industry associations, stock exchanges, management consulting firms, and research houses. So this just goes to show you the breadth of who is interested in RegTech, and that's who you're going to be talking to today. So I am now going to hand over. Al, do you want me to do housekeeping, or will Kimberley do that?
Kimberley will, that's fine.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so now I wanted to introduce you to Kimberley Whale, representing EY. I've known Kimberley a number of years now. She is a passionate humanitarian, culture and change advocate. She's a diversity and inclusion champion and a senior risk and compliance leader with over 16 years legal, professional services, financial services industry and non-government experience spanning Europe, Asia and Asia Pacific, all with major global and Australian organisations, including banks, insurers, superannuation, wealth and asset managers, and multinational NGOs and law firms. It's my great pleasure to hand over to Kimberley, who is going to manage proceedings from here on in, and I'll pop back up right at the end. Thanks very much, Kim.
No problem. Thanks, Deborah and Alison, and nice to see you all online, or at least names in a chat. Obviously, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this showcase event and help moderate today's session. Just want to reiterate, I think Deb and the team are doing an amazing job in responding and navigating the restrictions in light of COVID to help make these events possible. And 35 countries, that's pretty phenomenal. So congrats again to the team. Just to touch on the housekeeping, so if you don't mind, if everyone can be on mute at all times and really rely on the chat function to provide your questions. Obviously, I would encourage you all to help make this event a great success and spark the discussion through recording your questions, and I'll do my best to facilitate asking those. And we'll try our best to get to everyone. We do have 2 minutes at the conclusion of each presentation to run through any questions coming through the chat. So other than that, we'll see what time we've got left at the end. And a recording of this event will be available on the RTA, the RegTech Association website. So keep an eye out if you would like to revisit any of the presentations or discussion points in today's session. At the conclusion of the 4-minute mark, I'm just going to highlight here and welcome to my home and my bongo drums. The presenters will hear this, and that will signify 1 minute remaining. So don't be alarmed. That's just me and bongos from an unsuccessful life as a reggae band member. So anyway, I think that's it for the housekeeping. Deborah, did you want me to introduce Mike, my colleague at EY?
That'd be great.
Yeah, perfect. Next slide. So we've got Mike Abel on the line, an associate partner in our PI practice, working in technology advisory, who is very well rehearsed in a lot of the financial crimes challenges, and will be presenting for us a 5-minute overview on the landscape. So over to you, Mike.
Mike's on mute.
There we go.
That's better.
And thank you very much for your attention. That concludes my presentation. So what I was going to speak just quickly about is just a view of what's happening a little bit in the AML FinCrime landscape, specifically looking at transaction monitoring as one of those core areas. And I also wanted to touch a little bit, just because it's so timely, on what we see as some of the COVID impacts and how that's actually changing, how it's impacting FinCrime, how it's changing the way we look at FinCrime and what we need to do differently. So let's just start off to the first slide, because this is the one that will, now there's going to be a short test on this one to see how many names everybody can remember. The purpose around this is not to necessarily, bombard you with a whole load of logos and look at all the companies we know. The purpose of this, though, is to talk about one of the big shifts we're really seeing in the financial crime landscape from a technology perspective is the diversity of organizations and the changing ways that we see customers buying and customers implementing. So I think, if you went back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'd find one, maybe two technologies running most of the financial crime capabilities within a bank or insurer or whatever the case may be. And even sort of 2-3 years ago, that was the case. And here in Australia, we're still seeing a move towards that monolithic single platform that does everything. But I think globally that's changing a little bit. And globally, what's happening is people are moving now more to a best of breed type environment where they're looking at all the different components and aspects of that of that FinCrime requirement and saying, well, what are the different technology solutions out there? And you'll see a range of players across the landscape. Some of them are more pure FinCrime players. Some of them are not FinCrime organizations at all, but they have a strong role to play. And we're seeing more and more that leading organizations are finding ways to stitch together all these different capabilities. I would expect to see, if they're not on here already, I would expect to see some of our RegTech partners who are going to be presenting later today. I expect to see their logos on this chart in time, but this is just to give you a sense of, this is becoming an increasingly dynamic space. And people are more and more looking for point solutions to specific problems and stitching those together to form a solution. Next slide, if we could, real quick. Look, what I wanted to just say very quickly here is a little bit about COVID and how COVID is, it's not a FinCrime thing per se, but it is actually having an impact on FinCrime and a negative impact. So 3 basic reasons why. One is the shift of governments and corporates have moved. So if you go back 6 months ago, there was a lot of focus, particularly here in Australia, on financial crime. A lot of the major banks had some high profile incidents, and even the ones who didn't, they were all investing a lot and had a lot of focus on shoring up this space. Now COVID's come along and governments and corporates have got a new number one priority, and that's sort of taking some of the focus away, or it has the risk of taking that focus away. Other thing that's happened with COVID is you get a sharp increase in digital transactions, remote transactions, and that opens the world up to more types of criminal behavior. And I guess the last thing I'll call out, desperate times. So when the economy's down, whenever the economy's down, crime goes up. That's happened for hundreds and hundreds of years. Just that in the world.
Mike, we're having a hard time hearing you.
You hear me? Never fails.
You're back on.
I'm back on. Good. I don't know what happened there. We'll skip over slide 2. Slide 3 very quickly. So, now is the time to start to review your vulnerabilities, improve your capabilities. There's a whole range of areas to look at. The most common, that we see people focusing on, poor data quality, over monitoring, under monitoring. So I'm capturing too much, or I'm not capturing enough, and I'm letting potential criminal activity slip through. I have ineffective configurations, no analytics, no segmentation. Investigation processes are poor, so I might be popping out a number of good alerts, but I don't really have a good ability to work through those in any meaningful way. My operations costs are very high. Some of the banks now are into the thousands in terms of FTEs doing this. So it becomes a huge expense in the operation. poor governance, the limited management information. The organizations fly a bit blind, and there's still some cultural challenges with respect to FinCrime. A number of organizations still see this as a tick box exercise. I need to comply. I need to make sure I'm seen to be doing the right thing. And we also see instances of what we call fear of filing, where organizations think they're going to get in trouble by alerting the regulators that they've allowed these activities to go on. I'll stop there, but I think in conclusion, I think now is a great time to be looking at what's happening in the RegTech space. I think it's exciting that there's a lot of new things out there, and I think the market should be ready to be consuming a lot of those new things. So I think this is a really interesting space and a great time to be in it.
Great, thanks, Mike. That's really insightful, and I think you've certainly highlighted that events like COVID and the pandemic just continue to increase pressure on institutions to reshape the way business is being done, particularly around the transaction monitoring and then the capabilities around suspicious matter reporting. So without further ado, I think we might move on to the RegTech members who are presenting today. I'm really excited to hear from them on the topics around customer due diligence, behavioural analytics and transaction monitoring. So introducing the first cab off the rank, Milan Cooper and the team from First AML. So First AML, founded in Auckland, New Zealand, is focused on streamlining and accelerating the customer due diligence process through automation and the use of biometric identity verification, and serves a diverse customer base across law, accounting, real estate, and financial services. Milan is First AML's CEO and was previously a management consultant with Bain & Company and joined his co-founders with a deep experience in AML from the banking and finance sectors to develop this RegTech. So without further ado, Milan, over to you.
Thanks very much for the introduction, and thanks to the RegTech Association and Alison and Deborah for having us on today and organising this event. Love to tell everyone a bit about what we do at First AML and some of the problems we are solving. So if you flick to the next slide, Alison. This is really a depiction of the problem we're trying to solve. And what you see here is some unhappy faces. This is an entity with multiple individuals and beneficial owners that are being asked to go through identity verification processes every time they engage an AML reporting entity. So here in New Zealand, we are one of a handful of countries that have adopted phase 2 of the AML regime, and real estate agents, law firms and accounting firms have been brought into the fray. So it's really increased the frequency of AML requests. It's increased the frustration level around customers to these organizations because they are having to go through so many repetitive processes to be onboarded, and it's really necessitated a better solution. So we're all about automating and streamlining as much as possible the customer due diligence or KYC process to get these customers onboarded and doing business as soon as possible. Next slide, please. So we're a RegTech. Our background, as indicated earlier, is largely from the banking and financial sector, where we felt the pain of customer onboarding firsthand. Now we work with hundreds of AML reporting entities across New Zealand and Australia. And as mentioned, it's really about streamlining customer due diligence. And it starts with entity analysis, understanding who the beneficial owners of this entity are. And it goes through to data collection and biometric identity verification. And our value proposition is really to provide an end-to-end solution. So a reporting entity can ultimately outsource most of their obligations to First AML, and we can get their customers onboarded in a pretty painless manner. And this has been, increasingly important during the last few months as COVID has gripped the world, and we're finding a lot of traction with our biometric solution for remote verification of beneficial owners. And it's awesome to see how we can really help organisations meet their compliance obligations in times like these. Next slide, please. So, New Zealand's adopted phase 2, and that's brought real estate agents into the fray. So we work with firms like Colliers and JLL. They need to conduct customer due diligence processes whenever they lease or sell a property now. So they need our help, and the lawyers, the accountants, and also the financial services firms need our help. And we've got a great diverse customer base across these sectors. Next slide, please. They're really coming to us for these sort of 4 reasons. One is they're finding it's adding a lot of cost to their organisation to have dedicated compliance staff, or indeed frontline staff, having to conduct customer due diligence and collect KYC information from the customers. And that means a loss of productive time and ultimately an impact on the bottom line. Secondly, customers, the sort of the end customers are finding the AML onboarding process intrusive and repetitive. It's often paper-based, it's not digital, and it's a bit antiquated. And so they're looking for digital solutions to this. And they're looking for integrated solutions. So not just a tool for solving a discrete aspect of customer due diligence, but a full end-to-end solution. And of course, they want to avoid the risk of financial and reputational damage from non-compliance with AML legislation. So, just to wrap things up, our solution really comes together via these 3 pillars. We offer biometric verification, so individuals can be verified remotely. We provide a management platform for managing the CDD process end to end and providing real-time visibility into what's going on. And we actually provide a service element to our offering. So we have AML analysts who get involved in analysis on complex entities and breaking down beneficial ownership structures, etc. Next slide.
We're at time. That was 5 minutes.
On the dot. Perfect.
On the dot. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. So I think we've had a couple of questions come through on the chat. If I could start with that, and we'll just have our 2 minutes. So the first question was around the data quality, and given that a lot of firms are keeping poor data quality, it's a constant challenge, I guess, for the industry. How accurate is the entity analysis and identification of ultimate beneficial owners?
Yeah, so in New Zealand, we are lucky that we have a public register for company information. So New Zealand Companies Office register is quite up to date and has good quality data for breaking down company structures. Obviously, when we're looking at entities in jurisdictions without that public record, we rely on obtaining documents from the customer. But yeah, the data quality, if we're talking about entity analysis in New Zealand and Australia, is quite high.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. And maybe a follow-on from that, just how is personally identifiable information data secured, and how can clients be confident that the data breach similar to Equifax won't pose any future threats?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is number one priority for us. Our engineers spend a lot of time ensuring all of our systems and processes meet the most robust security standards. All our data is encrypted in transit and at rest, and it's just number one priority that we need to constantly be aware of, and the industry as a whole needs to be aware of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the data challenge, I think even Mike had introduced as well, it is a constant challenge for all. And maybe another question then specific to your solution, Milan. What really differentiates First AML from the other KYC or identity verification SaaS offerings?
Well, I think we really focus on an end-to-end solution. So there's a lot of great products out there which offer, a discrete solution, and so it might be identity verification, or it might be PEP and sanction screening, or it might be, a data repository. We are trying to stitch all of those things together in a full end-to-end solution. And, at least in our market, that really differentiates us.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, we're at time. I might hold on to the other questions until the end. But thank you again, Milan, and to your team at First AML.
Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you. So next we have FeatureSpace. FeatureSpace, a finalist in the 2020 RegTech Awards, is the founder of adaptive behavioral analytics, revolutionizing fraud and AML detection, working with some of the largest financial institutions, including HSBC, Total Systems WorldPay. And we have Aurelia, with a wealth of financial crime management experience and excellent client relationship skills. Starting her career with BNP Paribas, she moved to a Big Four management consulting firm and has worked across multiple financial institutions in the UK and globally, providing her expertise and with a focus on transaction monitoring. So starting with FeatureSpace, as a team of subject matter experts now leading the financial crime department, Aurelia ensures that FeatureSpace is always innovative, delivering and delighting its customers by being the best partner in their fight against financial crime. So without further ado.
Thank you, Kimberley. That's a long introduction, but thank you for that. And thank you, everybody, for your time today and the opportunity to present back as well. So next slide, please. Thank you. So I guess to just give a bit more context on what we do at FeatureSpace. So we are out of Cambridge University here in the UK. And what we started to look into is actually, instead of just being a normal rule-based solution, what we do is we apply machine learning and try to understand what good behavior looks like. Because if you think about it, 95% of customers, whether it's within financial institutions, payment service providers, merchant acquirers, are good, genuine people who just want to transact. And if we start monitoring good behavior, we can then spot outliers who will come out as a sore thumb. So we applied that in fraud for over 10 years, and we also moved into AML transaction monitoring, and that has proved real benefits to our customers. And some of them that we have seen during COVID with other machine learning models automatically adapting to those changes. So I guess Mike early on from EY presented some of the impacts of COVID. We have seen the increase of scams, and particularly, the pool of vulnerable people has really much increased with very sadly seeing people, furloughs or losing their jobs. And people have moved really into a digital world, so transacting much more online. And that has consequences, and some of them, the regulators reacted to it. I think Austrac was one of the first ones who really, delivered some guidance for financial institutions in terms of adapting their transaction monitoring solutions, re-optimizing their rules or transaction monitoring methods to catch those changes and ensure that there's no, criminal activity going through the net. And it's something that, banks and other institutions has tried their best to do. Next slide, please. So we see that, with people moving into digital, this is just an extract from the MasterCard report, actually, and you can see the trends of the utilization of their the cards online and how things are moving over the period of COVID. So again, the question is, how are those organizations ensuring they can effectively adapt their monitoring to those changes and being able to be on top of criminal activity and outsmart it. So if you go to the next slide. So I just wanted to kind of give an example here of what we have seen with our own solutions that has been implemented within organizations. And, you know, actually, it hasn't been a better example where fraud is a predicate offense for money laundering. We have seen a lot of, for example, mule activity, and where perhaps traditionally you would have thought that students are the go-to population for those type of criminality. Today, because of that vulnerable pool being much wider, you know, there is much more ways of exploiting that, unfortunately. So some of the models that we have, basically automatically adapted to the decrease of card presence volume and the flow of transactions going through, and being able to keep on top of the risks and spot those for our customers. So that was really a great success story for them, and we see that across, you know, fraud and AML. Transaction monitoring. By using adaptive behavior analytics, we have been able to deliver just that. So as key takeaways, you know, the adoption of predictive analytics really give an edge, and also the implementation of real-time technology makes a huge difference as well to be able to prevent earlier those type of activity. And also we see improved operational effectiveness and efficiency has a long-term benefit to customers in difficult times.
Perfect. And we are at time, Aurelia. Thank you very much for that presentation. Again, very insightful and certainly an area that I am keenly interested in. So turning to our friends on the chat, a few questions are coming, and please, I encourage you all to continue to throw them in there. I will do my best. First question, is your solution limited to cards fraud?
No, it's not. So we do card fraud, payment fraud, merchant monitoring as well, and AML transaction monitoring across all transaction types.
Okay, perfect. And maybe they're just on the AML transaction monitoring. I know that one of the challenges in industry is the non-availability of labeled data or structured data. So how is the adaptive data model getting trained in absence of this key element?
That's a really good question, Kimberley. So basically, we before going to production, we train it on SAR data or level 3 data, depending on the operating model of the bank. And in production, what happened is that the outcome of the investigation is feeding back into the model. So if an investigator closes an alert has a false positive, then the model will look into that and say, okay, these patterns I have been looking into are probably not of interest actually and not risky. Vice versa, if those are escalated to level 3 or raised as SARs, those confirmations are coming back to the models, and the model will look into more these type of things.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds feasible.
Yeah.
Maybe just to keep popping one more question I think we have time for. So just what have you seen in terms of changes to customer behavior through the performance metrics through your solution?
Well, I guess it's the use of more payment type of activity. Everybody gone back, were behind their screens. So you see a lot more activity around, online. So this is probably one of the main things. And then the type of transaction that they make is one of the major things that we have seen and the model has been adapted to.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. The quickfire round is over for you. You can relax. Thank you again for joining us today. Up next, we have Silent 8. Some of you may recall Silent 8 as a winner of the 2018 Accelerate Award. And we have Martin with us, who is the founder and CEO of Silent 8, a technology company that uses artificial intelligence-powered solutions to combat financial crime. With over 16 years of experience in software and AI solutions, Martin has taken the challenge of helping banks outsmart financial criminals and money launderers head on with Silent 8. So without further ado, over to you, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What an intro. Okay, next slide. So we're helping our customers, which are right now, like a very big banks, with the problems around the numbers of investigations they have to do. So around name screening, transaction screening, and transaction monitoring, volumes of these investigations are pretty high. This causes a problem. It was a massive problem when we were starting, and there was no COVID, there was no lockdown. So now, because of the whole pandemic and the whole like a lockdown situation, the challenges are even higher. And to help them deal with all these challenges, next slide please. What we decided to build is our thinking was, how could we create somehow a machine that could do the work of analysts on the ground performing these investigations. So next slide. So what we came up with is something like this. Like, this is a normal kind of like a work that you find in many financial institutions. And then you have some screening engines, monitoring engines, consuming some data, outputting everything that's even remotely suspicious that have to be looked at. And then someone is actually looking at all these alerts and in some complex process deciding if they're false positives or they're true positives. So next slide. So what we're doing is actually plugging in Silent 8 into this whole setup, and we start to learn how your people are actually making decisions and why they're making decisions like they're making. So we're learning everything, your best practices and all the mistakes that you potentially do. And then we let it to our customers to decide which one of the patterns that we actually picked up are best practices and needs to be memorized and needs to be applied later on in production, and which one of them are actually mistakes or like people taking shortcuts and maybe that they are learned, but they're not something that the bank would like to automate. So next slide. So after we do this learning, then we're ready to take all the new cases, come up with solutions. And when I say solutions, we try to do it just like humans. So based on all these approved patterns, we're trying to tell you for each case, hey, this is, for example, a false positive case, and in plain English, explain to you why it's a false positive case using what we've learned, or for true positive cases, explain to you why the case is true positive, or if we can't prove it's false or true, we allow ourselves to say, hey, I don't know, I'm not here in a guessing game, please try to solve it manually. We will learn from what you just did after you're done, and we'll try to keep this engine fresh and up to date with all the kind of challenges of the changing world. So we did this with a lot of we have a lot of very big deployments with some global financial institutions. The oldest one that we have is with Standard Chartered Bank. When we're helping automate their a whole screening process, we went live with them in December 2018 into production. So this is something that's been rolled out with them across the whole market globally for all the business lines already a year and a half ago. And since then, we've been lucky to do it in many other places. And we're just helping a lot of our customers cope with the current situation. And that's it from my side. Did I make it in 5 minutes? I think so.
You made it in 4. Thank you very much, Martin.
Awesome.
I didn't get to bang my bongo drums, unfortunate for me. Thank you very much for that presentation. So just going to the questions on the chat. So one of the first ones, and I appreciate that this is a challenge that no doubt you've heard many times before as well, with the regulators and their approach around black box solutions and how easy it is to explain your model, and the white box approach. So can you maybe just provide some color or clarity on how you redress the challenges in facing off to the regulators around your solution?
Yeah, so this is something that was very important part of the design of our whole solution. So we had to design it in a way that that the model would be fully explainable. So like you have to be able to so imagine we're tracing this back. We have solved a case. You're looking at the solution, like someone asked, like, why did you decide to close the case like this? First of all, you can, for this particular case, you can read in plain English why the bank decided to close a case like this. So now you're, okay, so this is for this one particular case, but what led to this? What model led to this decision? Then you can trace this back into our engine and see, okay, so this was a pattern that was actually approved by someone. It went through this whole chain of command, like maker, checker, approver, or like whatever the workflow was for someone to approve it. This decision to approve this part of the model was based on this type of data, on this type of tests, and this is how it changed over time. So you have this whole transparency, like an end-to-end transparency into the process, and building this way, it's some sort of a trade-off. So like our solution is designed for this purpose and almost for this purpose only. Like you cannot think about using us in other verticals, in other use cases. So we had it was impossible for us to figure out something that would be completely generic and in the same time check all these boxes. So we decided to focus on this space, solve this type of problems, and this is how we landed with this design.
Yeah, okay, perfect. That's really helpful. The traceability, no doubt, very important. Maybe one more question and then we'll call it. So is your solution based on any robotic process automation, or use it for transaction monitoring as well?
So there is a small RPA component into this, but the idea here is that it's not necessarily. So what we're trying to automate here, really, it's not necessarily, for example, collection of data and moving a data from point A to point B and just kind of like consolidating information. That's very often required to come up with a solution. But what we're trying to figure out here is to automate how people are making their decisions, how people are reasoning. So you try to train them to do the right thing. So like right now, you just provide them with knowledge, provide them with procedures, like provide them with training. So we try to learn like what they're actually doing when they need to apply all this knowledge, and show you back like how this knowledge is actually being applied, and try to automate this. So moving some data from place to place is a part of that, but that's not the hardest. Part of what we're doing.
Perfect. And Martin, I'll call it there, but there are a couple more questions. Maybe if we have time at the end, we'll come back to that. But thank you again for your presentation.
Sure. I just saw on the chat like my photo from 2018. My God, I was so young.
Yes, your chat has been
Thanks for posting this. I remember. Like, thank you for the award, and like really happy to be here today.
Excellent. Great to have you here. Thank you again. Up next, Synopsys Solutions, also a finalist in the 2020 RegTech Awards, was established in Singapore in 2014 with operating offices in the UK, Dubai, Taiwan and Vietnam, and offers SaaS solutions designed to automate know your customer and anti-money laundering processes. And we have Jessica Ho, the sales manager for Synopsys, with us today, who currently heads up the Australia market. And over the 2 years of being with Synopsys, she's helped firms in various sectors achieve regulatory advantage globally by addressing their compliance gaps and pain points with the right tools curated to best suit the business needs. So without further ado, over to you, Jessica. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alison, for the kind introduction. I hope everyone is well. And without further ado, let me go straight into sharing more about Synopsys Solutions. We are founded in 2014 by Chaikit and Abel, our CEO and co-founders who brought with them over 20 years of compliance experience from their banking days. And currently we are headquartered in Singapore, but we have offices in UK, Taiwan, and Vietnam. And we're expanding our routes to US and Dubai to cater to our existing clientele, like First Abu Dhabi Bank that we have with us. Over the 6 years since our establishment, we are very privileged to have won many support and recognition. And just this year, we are really thankful to be shortlisted by the RegTech Association as the finalists for the RegTech Award 2020. Next slide. Our main goal is to help businesses from various sectors like the fintech, financial institutions, accountants, and many others to automate and simplify their customer due diligence, KYC, and AML process to achieve regulatory advantage so as to allow them to always stay one step ahead of the regulatory curve. Next. Akin to the investment world where AAA ratings are given to the highest quality product, Synopsys also has our very own suite of AAA products that comes with API integration and SDK as well. So we have Aries, our digital user onboarding, Artemis, our eKYC screening and case management tool, and Athena, our transaction monitoring solution. So what we provide here, as you can see, is an end-to-end seamless KYC and AML solutions from onboarding to post-onboarding to ensure that businesses that need them have the preventive and detective controls in place to effectively to deter financial crimes. Next. Now, we all know that having new clients are good, but onboarding can be a bit of a pain. And digital onboarding is ever more relevant during a time where minimizing contact is encouraged. So our Aries, our digital user onboarding, actually help you to onboard customers and users in just a few easy steps. So customers just have to upload their ID and our optical character recognition in place will extract the information and fill up the mandatory fields for them automatically. Then their ID will also go through authentication checks to ensure that they do not upload fake passports or IDs. Then they will move on to do a liveness test, which is to perform on-screen facial movements to prevent them from spoofing the system, and we will capture an image of them to actually do a facial comparison and verification. If they need to sign off any documents, we actually have DocuSign on board as our partner, so they can easily sign off from Aries instantly, further eliminating the need for paperwork process. And lastly, we have the Phone 2 FA verification. So we support global country codes. So when they enter their phone number, we will send a 6-digit verification code and to verify. So this is more of an enhanced security on our side. Yeah, next slide. We have Artemis. So this is where Artemis comes into play. So Aries will the profile will be sent down for screening from Aries to screen for PP, politically exposed person, PP, sanction, and adverse news. Then profiles can also be sent through via API integration with your front end, or you can also opt for manual input as well. So as you can see, the profiles actually run through a few KYC screening platforms that we have in Artemis. So this includes our global database partners, Refinitiv and Dow Jones, and global sanctioned terrorism alert list, which we, our compliance team actually maintain and update in-house daily. Once the screening is done, using our artificial intelligence and machine learning in place, we filter out the results against the customer details provided and show you the most relevant match as to reduce your workload of going through like a long list of false positive hits, which is really a pain that a lot of my clients told me. Yeah, and of course, Artemis goes beyond, before previous slide. Sorry. So of course, Artemis goes beyond screening. We take a risk-based approach and provide risk assessment and scoring, classifying profiles into low, medium, and high risk with low risk auto-approved for you. So Artemis also comes in with ongoing due diligence to monitor the risk health of your existing clients. And we have audit trail and timestamps for action taken. Next slide. Okay, lastly, we have Athena. So Athena is our transaction monitoring tool. So in Athena, we have predefined rules and algorithms in place to detect suspicious transactions that are being put through. So, but the rules and algorithms are fully configurable and customizable to the business requirements and needs. So this will allow you to achieve your business needs more effectively. Yeah. Next slide.
Jessica, I think we've reached time.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to cut you off there. That was great.
No problem. Thanks.
Yeah, let's see if we've got more time at the end. But I'll just jump into a couple of questions, if I may.
Yeah.
So the first one, do you have transliteration support for sanctions monitoring?
Sorry, translation support for
transliteration support.
Yes, we do. We do have that.
Do you want to expand on maybe some of the sanctions monitoring and how accurate is your fuzzy match?
Okay. Yeah, so our fuzzy match, fuzzy match is according to the permutation. So the clients on board with us can actually adjust it accordingly. So let's say Jessica Ho Jessica. So when this name goes through the screening, then it will pull out the most relevant match. But not just according to the name, because we filter out against their gender, date of birth, country of residence, etc., and all this, and then filter out the most relevant results for them instead of having them to go through like a long list of false positive hits. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to keep going. So you've got a couple more questions. Do you support KYC for non-individual customers or only individuals?
Yes, we do support for both. We do corporate and individual workflow. So under the corporate, there's a corporate workflow where they can upload their corporate entity, and then their shareholders, UBOs, the necessary shareholder, others shareholders, and also individual workflows for individual entities.
Okay, great. And maybe a related question on the digital onboarding. Do you use synthetic IDs, and are you able to build multiple personas of a single entity based on device intelligence data?
Yes, we do. So on our tech side, we are working on all of this, and we are able to actually do the kind of deep fakes, and actually we actually work with face tag. Yeah, so we actually pull out do a match between the facial comparison between the screenshot of their face and the screenshot of their photo ID to do facial verification. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jessica. We'll call it there. Thank you for your presentation.
Appreciate it.
And next, we have Comply Advantage. So a global tech company transforming how institutions manage their financial crime risk and compliance by leveraging data science and machine learning to understand risk computationally. So we have Ben Jafari, the Commercial Director in Australia for Comply Advantage. And this RegTech was recently selected by the World Economic Forum as a technology pioneer for their innovation in anti-financial crime. So welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Kimberley, and I want to thank EY, the RegTech Association, and send some congrats to my peers on the panel as well. So Comply Advantage, we're an anti-money laundering technology firm. The key thing here is that compliance doesn't have to be painful, and it has been painful to date. Crime is going up. Only 1% of money laundering is actually caught or even identified or even traced. And given the COVID situation, things are changing very quickly. So identifying these crimes are very tricky given the solutions that are existing. And we have currently within our businesses. To put it as an example, you wouldn't use car parts from the 1980s to compete in the Formula One for 2020. So you require better technology and data to make sure that you're fighting financial crime and making the world a safer place. Can we go to the next slide, please? So essentially, what we've seen from all our clients is that they're saying the current system is broken. And there's a lot of different reasons why that is. And it goes down to the data they're using. So Comply Advantage, we're a data provider for all the anti-money laundering sanctions, watch lists, PEPs, and adverse media. We use technology to deliver streamline information. A lot of legacy software solutions can be inflexible to accommodating changing business models. So again, at Comply Advantage, we've made a system which is easy to integrate, easy to customize, and easy to use. So if something changes tomorrow or the day after, you can easily make that change without having to make massive operational expenses or backtrack. There's a large human cost. So often the bigger the business gets doesn't mean that your costs have to grow. It just means that the system needs to be a lot more savvy and it needs to understand how you operate. So as a business, we work with far different industries, businesses big or small, and we deliver a solution which can automate a lot of the processes, and I'll go into further what those processes are. And also professional services. It's very difficult to set up systems according to different business models. And again, this is where Comply Advantage comes in and delivers a solution which, one, is an easy API that you can integrate, you can use it modularly, and we also work with dozens and hundreds of different kind of partners which have used our solutions. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the key thing here is, what if you were able to understand the real risk of who you're doing business with via a single API call? And if we go to the next slide, that is exactly what we can do. So once you've onboarded your customer, you want to check what their risk is. So we are one of 4 global data providers, and in fact, the only data provider to build our information using technology. Our clients often said that their information is out of date, or they're missing information, or they're not getting the right thing. So we use technology to build our database. So you can, with one API call, check what their risk is. Any client across the globe, anywhere. We're a global business and we work across every country. And then following that, you want to monitor their transactions and understand, are they doing anything suspicious? Are they trying to do any sort of form of financial crime or money laundering? And again, with a simple API call, we can deliver and provide all that information to our clients. Every system can be tailored by the client end. They can pick and choose any information. And the key thing here is that as criminals are becoming more intelligent and more smarter and evading detection easily, as we only pick up 1% of crime globally, that's the statistics that are given from all the other existing systems. We make sure that we identify everything that is out there and provide you with the right information. You can customize the system in a way that picks up all the information for you in real time. So if you onboard a customer today and something changes tomorrow, you'll be alerted in real time. There's no need for you to do any batch processes. There's no need for you to try and do some manual work. We'll alert you automatically. And so if we go to the next slide, the proof is in the pudding. We work with a lot of global businesses and we partner with many. And so these are examples of all the different companies that we're supporting, from our APAC office to our Americas office to our European office. We support every sort of different type of business to streamline their operations. And if we go to the final slide, I really urge everyone to get in touch and contact us and to learn about the solutions that we have. And also, again, see what the differentiator is and some of these challenges that our existing customers have had and we've solved. We'd be happy to provide you with some further information on how we can support you and make the world a safer place from financial crime. Thank you.
Wonderful, and thank you, Ben, with 5 seconds to spare. That was a great presentation, and certainly helping to solve for the data challenges around the uncertainty that is anti-money laundering is very welcome. So I might pivot to some of the questions coming through the chat. The first one is your solution based on results as a service? And if yes, do you provide a score along with the reason for the score?
So I would say that the best result is success. So for every client that we work with, we identify what their problems are, and problems can be having a lot of false positives, missing true positives. It can be a measure of different things and a range of different things. Essentially, we understand that with the client that we sit down with. We aim and we actually identify what success means for them, and we develop and tailor our solutions around them. They can do it from their end, but often businesses like to have some guidance and some hand-holding when it comes to these sorts of solutions. So we provide any sort of business, what means success for them and reach those goals with them.
Yeah, perfect. And collaboration is key to be fit for purpose. So that's great.
Exactly.
Is the solution able to identify individuals holding multiple passports or citizenship?
So we don't do any sort of identification and verification. We are essentially, is this customer good or bad? So once you've onboarded a customer, you want to find out if you can work with them. Are they sanctioned, watch listed? Are they a politician? Do they have any sort of negative news across the world? We'll let you know that. So if they are indeed a bad individual, they'll be in our database and we'll alert you for that.
Another question for you, Ben. Do you screen devices with OFAC for identification of crypto launderers?
Yes, so we work with some certain crypto exchanges, and they need to identify their devices and identify if certain wallets are listed on sanctions lists, but most importantly, identify if those wallets are doing any sort of suspicious activity. And the best way you can do that is actually monitor the transactions going in and out and how they actually, is it some sort of structuring, smurfing? So we do a lot of behavioral analytics around the wallets. And if there's any information that they've been sanctioned, we'll provide that information as well. We'll have that.
Perfect. Very, very insightful. I think we are at time. So very much big thank you to all of the members that have presented. You've certainly been very educational for me. It's always good to keep a finger on the pulse on the latest and greatest and see what the pioneers are doing around the technology enablement for these solutions. And I might, on that note, hand back over to Deborah. And thank you again for the questions. I think Suhaib, Ahmed, your questions, a quick fire round certainly have dominated, but yeah, Deb, let me know if you need any more questions at the end here. We do have some more. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Kimberley. And thank you very much to everyone, Milan, Aurelia, Ben, Jessica, Martin, Mike and Kim, and of course Alison, who makes sure that all of these events run very, very smoothly. And thanks to everybody that attended. We really appreciate that. The good news is it doesn't stop there. You can see on the slide that we have one on cybersecurity and IT risk on the 23rd of July, which will be a similar format to this one. And then we'll move on to some speech and voice data analytics, just settling on a date. And then there's a follow-up financial crime one to this session where we'll talk about risk assessments, compliance and regulatory reporting. Just watch for those dates as they're coming through. We'll have some more RegTech Open for Business sessions also coming up. And if you can mark your diaries, the 18th of March 2021 will be our Accelerate RegTech annual conference in Sydney on that date. I just wanted to show you the map. So here we are, 150 organisations. About 100 of them are RegTechs, and we're slowly working our way through all of the membership at these programs. And so if you would like to join this map, then go here and explore the benefits. Otherwise, please do reach out to Alison or myself to have a chat about how you can be part of this. The bigger and the stronger that we make this and the more diverse we make this, the better we will all be. We are seeing an amazing number of people coming to attend these now from all different sectors of the community, seeking solutions, obviously, to their challenges. So this is, you know, a really fantastic place to start is by coming and engaging with us. And I think that is all. So what I will do, though, is I will stay on the line. If anybody would like to stay on and they've got any questions for me, and if any of our subject matter experts are available to stay on for another few minutes, then they can do that too, and we can get some of those additional questions answered. Or alternatively, please feel free to email and we can connect you. But otherwise, let's stay on for a little bit of networking from now. So I'll call a close to the formal proceedings.